know why anyone would object to drying up the supply of these weapons over time. They are not good hunting weapons. Many states have limits on the number of bullets that can be on a clip. And who's going to respect a hunter with a 30-round clip and an assault weapon going after a deer? I certainly am not one that would. So the intention of this is to dry up the supply over time. While homicides in general are down in this country, mass killings are not. And the fact is that these assault weapons have a great attraction for grievance killers, the people that go into law offices, as they did in San Francisco, and shoot down 14 people. The man who went into the Aurora Theater just to kill people with a 100-round drum in an assault weapons. And we've seen it in universities, we've seen them in elementary schools, and now we have seen them used against first graders. The time has come, America, to step up and ban these weapons. The other very important part of this bill is to ban large-capacity ammunition feeding devices, those that hold over 10 rounds. We have federal regulations and state laws that prohibit hunting ducks with more than 3 rounds, and yet it's legal to hunt humans with 15-round, 30-round, even 150-round magazines. Limiting magazine capacity is critical because it is when a criminal, a drug dealer, a deranged individual has to pause to change magazines and reload that the police or brave bystanders have the opportunity to take that individual down. We saw this scenario happen in Tucson, Arizona, where the madman who shot our former colleague, Gabby Giffords, was taken down when he had to change magazines. So my view is that how could I stand by and see this carnage go on? And members, this isn't going to stop. It's going to continue on. And we have a chance to do something about it. So I cannot tell you how much. I was mayor of San Francisco for 9 years. I walked into places, I saw the carnage firsthand. And at that time, I really dedicated the rest of my life to do something about it. So this is an opportunity. I want to thank those who are with me. I don't know that I can convince those that are not, but I intend to keep trying. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have any amendment to your amendment?
I do not.
Are there amendments to the
so strongly
to Senator Feinstein's? Sure. So first, Senator Grassley. First, sorry, I was. We'll go to you too.
I appreciate Senator Feinstein's sincerity. I expressed that 3 or 4 times at the last hearing. I suppose as much as I oppose her bill, she wonders whether I appreciate her sincerity or not. This has been an important issue for her for 20 years, and we all have to feel for the victims of Newtown. But there are other parents of children who were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School who mourn the loss of their loved ones, no less, and yet feel very differently about the ways Congress should respond. On Tuesday, I spoke to Mr. Matt Eoli. His son, James, was one of those victims. Even in his grief, he sent me a letter that he authorized me to seek consent to place on the record in a quote during the debate. Mr. Matt Eoli describes how no one should have to endure what he has endured, and of course no one should. He wrote, quote, I can understand where knee-jerk reactions come from to ensure never again. I caution that we employ common sense and do not hand over any liberty which is protected by the Constitution, end of quote. I agree. We continue to wait for the Justice Department constitutional analysis of the bill. despite statements by the Department of Justice witness at 2 hearings on this matter. I have yet to see an opinion from the department arguing that this bill is constitutional. I appreciate the input of other scholars who have offered their opinions as witnesses, but the Justice Department has or should have a different role in providing us with a constitutional analysis. I go back to Mr. Mattioli saying that the debate should not be about controlling guns, but controlling people who cannot control themselves, like people with mental illness and felonies. He favors making sure people can find their moral compass and parents who will raise their children to know right from wrong and not expose them to violence. I agree with Mr. Mattioli on this point. Then he writes, quote, "For those who tell me that my son and 25 others were killed that day with an assault weapon, I challenge them to consider," end of his quote, "other important factors." He says that assault weapons, quote, "are not a threat to our safety," end of quote, and he's very focused on improving mental health services. Mr. Mattioli also opposes the limit on magazine capacities. He asks, quote, "With 250 million guns in the United States, how are you going to make me safer by reducing new magazines to 1, 5, or 10 rounds? Question mark. He continues to say, "You will not increase my safety, only obstruct me from protecting myself from criminals who may possess one of the existing guns out there," end of quote. Mr. Mattioli has great courage to have survived this terrible ordeal and to make the statements he has made. I think he speaks with great understanding of how to address mass shootings. His words, difficult to write, I'm sure, are an important viewpoint that we should consider. This is especially true when the constitutional concerns about this legislation that arrive in light of the Heller decision. I continue to believe that this legislation is flawed under the Supreme Court's Second Amendment cases. Given those flaws, I oppose the legislation. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. I'll try to go back and forth here.